We've seen many times in investigations like this where we've gone the wrong way. Police nationally have gone the wrong way, jumped into a suspect.
So that was Paul Hughes, the senior investigating officer looking into what happened at the Countess of Cheshire Hospital. He is saying there that the investigation into the hospital is not just an open-minded investigation, but a uniquely open-minded investigation. An investigation far more open-minded than your average police investigation.
By investigating that it could be anyone means we're not focused on one person. So investigating that it could be anything means we're not focused on any one event.
So if you accept Paul Hughes at face value, then he should be ready for an investigation that throws up all kinds of curveballs. One such unexpected curveball may have been the case that the lead expert witness is or was in fact a psychopath who saw the case as a payday rather than a search for the truth. The alternative to taking Paul Hughes at face value is that this is something he's filmed after the defence have made their case, and not something he gave much consideration during the investigation. Certainly, we know from publicly available information that when a statistician suggested that Cheshire Police were taking a narrow-minded view of the investigation, she was fired either due to Cheshire Police, the Crown Prosecution Service, or a combination of the two. Looking at this article in The Guardian, Lucy Letby, police and CPS handling of case raises new concerns about convictions. Reading through it, The Guardian has now learned that from an early stage, Cheshire Police recognised the case involved statistics, and they had initially engaged Hutton, that's as in Professor Jane Hutton, a statistics professor. According to emails seen by The Guardian, in April 2018, an officer on the investigation approached Hutton, who has extensive experience in medical research. Without naming Letby, he asked Hutton whether she could put a figure on how likely it was to be just a coincidence for one member of staff to be on duty during all the deaths/collapses in the neonatal unit, i.e. 1 in a million, etc. She informed the police that a proper statistical inquiry would not concentrate on one member of staff from the outset, but instead required full research into all possible explanations for any increase in babies collapsing, including their medical conditions and prematurity, as well as the performance of the unit. Reviews commissioned by the hospital had found medical explanations for nearly all the deaths, criticised the standard of care on the unit, and noted a lack of senior doctors. Cheshire Police then signed a consultancy agreement with Hutton and agreed fees. The documents suggest the force did not proceed to commission Hutton's analysis at that time, but contacted her again in 2021 after Letby had been charged. A video call was arranged, but an officer later cancelled the call. It has been said that Cheshire Police sacked Professor Hutton under instruction from the Crown Prosecution Service. A consortium of medical and statistical experts, including NHS Deputy Director Mike Buick, they're independent from Lucy Letby's appeal, have signed a document calling for an investigation of this sacking, which I will go through in a bit. The implication of the document is obviously that the sacking led to a flawed investigation, wrongful conviction, huge number of people led astray, and a huge waste of public money. Without getting too far off topic, let's refer back to the claim at the start of the video that the Countess of Cheshire Hospital investigation was not just an open-minded investigation, but a rare and unusually expansive open-minded investigation.
We've seen many times in investigations like this where we've gone the wrong way. Police nationally have gone the wrong way, jumped into a suspect.
So the scenario surrounding the sacking of Professor Jane Hutton suggests that she may have been sacked because she suggested Cheshire Police were too focused on one suspect. However, until there has been an investigation by an organisation such as the Independent Office for Police Conduct, we don't really know how much of an open mind the police took early in the investigation. I think those who have followed the Thirlwall inquiry, though, would say there has been no evidence produced to to say they investigated anyone except Lucy Letby. Regardless of how the early investigation was handled, in more recent times, according to publicly available information, there is significant evidence to suggest that Cheshire Police are loath to investigate anyone except Lucy Letby. One explanation for this is the jury verdict, though if there is information to suggest the jury were led astray, this defence is of limited relevance. An alternative, perhaps more human and less technical explanation for their reluctance to follow alternative lines of inquiry is that perhaps they are worried about looking stupid over their original investigation. Remember, the police have a statutory duty to follow all reasonable lines of inquiry, not just the ones that might support a certain case. From what I have heard, Cheshire Police was sent the first crime report for matters relating to the trial around September 2023. This crime report was sent by a retired paediatric consultant and medico-legal expert and suggested that the two main expert witnesses at the trial, Dr. Dowie Evans and Dr. Sandy Bowen, gave evidence that was so medically inaccurate they were obstructing or perverting the course of justice. Even though this information came from a credible source, at that point I don't think it was outrageous for Cheshire Police not to investigate so close to the verdict. Details of the next crime report that was sent to Cheshire Police that I'm aware of were made public in the Sunday 11th May edition of the Sunday Times, published earlier this year. Investigate Lucy Letby Doctor for perjury is the headline, the doctor being Ravi Jayaram. I think he's also been reported for perverting the course of justice. The letter was sent by MP Sir David Davis and addressed to the Chief Constable of Cheshire Constabulary, Mark Roberts. The Times article quotes from Sir David Davis' letter saying, quote, "This matter goes beyond the outcome of a single trial. It touches on public confidence in the integrity of our criminal justice system, in particular the requirement to tell the truth under oath in court and the duty of full and fair disclosure during prosecution," close quote. Although I'm not sure the full details of his grounds for calling for an investigation are made known in the letter. The article mainly focuses on an email contradiction, which I think most people have seen at this point, where Dr. Jayaram contradicts his court testimony, saying Lucy Letby called him for help. To look at the response from Cheshire Constabulary, they said, quote, "The Chief Constable has received a letter. This has been reviewed and he will be responding in due course, addressing all the concerns raised," close quote. Which to me, at the time, personally I thought was a fob-off response. I thought that while they may have had no intention of investigating Dr. Jayaram, they weren't going to publicly acknowledge that until the publicity surrounding the case had died down. Looking back now, I think they may also have been bullishly confident about bringing new charges which would silence their critics. The parliamentary briefing document, which I've mentioned before, contains details regarding the evidence against Dr. Jayaram. I think this would come under the category of perverting the course of justice rather than perjury, although they kind of tie together. Quote, "Enclosure 4 demonstrates that key evidence of incompetent ventilator setup was omitted from the evidence presented at trial. The responsibility for the setup of the ventilator is the responsibility of the consultant," close quote. This document also takes a dim view of the police investigation, saying, quote, "Police investigative standards in the Letby case should be held to account," close quote. Other evidence which provides grounds for suspicion that Dr. Jayaram may have intentionally tried to pervert the course of justice includes a claim that he twice saw an incredibly rare and distinctive pink rash, which is contradicted by other witnesses and Dr. Lee said should not have occurred. I've been through this in more detail in other videos, but he also made an error over swipe data times, which coincided with exactly the same error the police made. The next publicly known crime report relates to Dr. Stephen Breary, who has been reported by Dr. Svelena Dimitrova over the potential gross negligence manslaughter of baby O, and then subsequent steps that were taken to pervert the course of justice. I expect most have seen this was first brought up at a press conference by Dr. Richard Taylor.
The needle perforated the liver. The baby was still being ventilated with a needle in the liver. The liver was now being lacerated.
It has been described by former senior coroner's officer Stephanie Davies how details of this attempted needle aspiration were then kept back from the coroner and pathologist. Further details relating to the perverting the course of justice complaint have also been described in the Lucy Letby case part 28 in Private Eye. Quote, 2 new experts argue that page 97 of the evidence or medical records is a resuscitation sheet that clearly shows a large drop in hemoglobin after Dr. Stephen Breary inserted a needle in the region of the liver. However, Breary documented it in the notes as if the fall in hemoglobin had happened before the needle insertion. It is rumoured that a 5th authoritative crime report has gone in relating to one of the anonymous witnesses. So at this point, we are now up to potentially 5 crime reports relating to the trial or events during the indictment period. And at this point, some of the complainants, such as Dr. Dimitrova, have recently said Cheshire Police have done nothing to engage with her. On a closing note, I will say, let me know in the comments, do you think Cheshire Police are justified in not investigating until the CCRC have made a decision, or do you think they should open up alternative lines of inquiry?